Okay, this is a ownership review. I've owned this 4 years, since 2021, and this is a Scrambler XP1000S, and I haven't been able to find any good videos on it, any decent reviews, or maybe some like interesting little modifications people have made to these things. I just don't find enough content that I would want to see about it, so I decided to make it. So here we go. So like I said, I've owned this since 2021. I was sold on the idea in 2020 when they came out. Polaris made a really awesome video for the release of these things in 2020. They took it out to the Nevada desert, and they had like some of the best riders in the world ripping up on it. And I was sold. It took me a year to find one. 2020, we all know what happened there. It was tough to find stuff. So anyway, I got it, and here's some of the things I've done to it in that time. And I'll start here. It's a thing I get the most comments about is the rear rack. And it was one of the first things that changed, actually. So the original rack had cast aluminum uprights with a plastic covered steel top. And it was in a really funky, weird shape, looked like a bat wing almost. And I didn't like it. I didn't like the box option Polaris was providing with it. It was like almost like a weird fabric, flexible box with a zipper. And anyone who off-roads long enough will know like zippers in the dirt just don't mix. And it just wasn't going to provide what the storage solution I was needing. So what I originally started with was I was just going to go to Home Depot, and I was going to buy a toolbox. And I was just going to like figure out a way to mount the toolbox onto the weird bat wing thing, Well, ignorance or whatever, I'd never seen these Milwaukee packouts before. In that trip to Home Depot, I actually discovered the Milwaukee packout system. And that was a game changer. I knew right away that's what I wanted. I bought a box, bought the mounting plate, and I just went to use the original framework they had. And the original weight capacity was 50 pounds on the original rack. Well, they weren't lying. There's a reason why I can't show you what the original rack looked like, because it is no longer with us. And a good buddy of mine, Ironclad American on Instagram, he made this. We made this together in his garage. Did a really killer job. And like, I don't know what the weight capacity is now, just because I don't know how they determine such things. I determine it the old school way, by you just keep loading it till it breaks, and I can't break this one. So I load it with pretty heavy stuff. Like, here's my pack-out system that I use most often. I call this my long distance setup. So this is full of tools that I might need on the road. There's a medical kit in there. There's a spare belt, all kinds of stuff. Well, stereo and a hat, of course. But so, and then this is just an ice chest. And I like carrying the ice chest so that way I don't have to carry the water on my back. And so that setup together, I mean, especially when the ice chest is loaded with ice, that gets pretty heavy. And that has remained solid the entire time. I've not had a single issue with it. As a matter of fact, I have, to test the load, I sat on this rack. I currently weigh about 290 pounds. So, that's, I wouldn't do it often, I'd tell you that, but it held up. And I'm using the same stock mounting locations as the original rack, also using the same mounting hardware. So that worked out good. The one thing I did discover was you can get away with it on the side-by-sides, just having the pack out with no straps on there. I've seen people do it. I don't know how aggressive a rider they are or anything like that, or driver. But on an ATV, you need something to cinch those boxes down. They lock in, and that's okay. But if you're going to weight those boxes and you're really going to do some aggressive riding, you're going to want something to strap them down. I got these auto retractable straps from Amazon. They've been working fantastic. And it makes it quick and easy to get in and out of the boxes as well, because obviously I started with just the regular ratchets, but to spend the time to hook them up and do all that every time I wanted to get in the box, especially given my water was in there, it just left a little to be desired. Those solved all that issue. So while I'm back here, I'll mention, this will be kind of a review on Polaris in and of itself. The rear box they give you back here, I mean, even with this stock rack, it always had like a stop on the rack, like it just hit the rack. Hard to get into. Right now I'm kneeling down just to look inside of here. That's not great. And this little box lid doesn't have hinges on it. It's got 2 plastic knives that just go into slots back there. This is my 3rd lid. Just from opening and closing it, it is broke. The only thing I keep in there is sometimes I'll keep tire plug kit if I'm running boxless. And most of the time it's just like tie downs and stuff to tie this down in the bed of the truck. So I don't use that box often, and I'm on my 3rd lid because the little plastic knives break. Just because they get kind of bound up, and if they bind up, they break super easy. So that, Polaris is kind of notorious for its kind of fit and finish design quality being really poor. Yeah, that's a Polaris standard right there. That's not great. And it's kind of weird because I get around to the side and show you. There's a big gap back there. I feel like that box could be way bigger. It looks like a lot of leftover real estate back there. And God, if they could just move that tail light and have a front access box, that would change everything. RJWC Power Sports exhaust. They don't make this exhaust anymore, it looks like. I was just on their website the other day. So yeah, that exhaust isn't currently in production anymore. It's great. It sounds fantastic. It's on the borderline of being too loud though. It's just a slip-on. It's not all the way to the headers. So the one thing that you do have to do with that is up front, you have to put in an injector pigtail. And the injector pigtail is to fatten up the fuel air mixture, because I don't know if it's for I don't know if it's like EPA compliance or what, but they run the mixture super lean from the factory. So I put my little pigtail from RWJC, right there. And it comes with like a little Velcro sticker. I Velcroed it right there. Keep it kind of out of the weather as much as I can. And I should mention, while we're talking about that if you do decide to put pipes on there with a little pigtail, as far as this brand, I don't know about HMF or anything like that. They also make pipes for this. If you plug that in, don't worry about that. That's just a service interval that I still need to reset. You gotta check engine light. That check engine light is from that chip. The most interesting thing about that check engine light doesn't affect how it runs just fine. But the most interesting thing about it is this is my performance switch. I've replaced all the switches with light up ones just so they're easier to see at night. And interesting thing about that check engine light, blah blah blah, is when you turn it to performance mode, the light goes away. I don't know why. Performance and standard works just like it should. It gets faster when you do that, gets slower when you do that. So the only difference is that little check engine light. So that's something to keep in mind if you're gonna go aftermarket exhaust, which I I like an aftermarket exhaust. It really helps with the droning sound of these CVT engines, and it makes it a little bit faster. I did notice a power difference when I put it on there. But yeah, those are some of the quirks to deal with when you do something like that. I'll get down to that. So I got these Sedona ripsaws, and I wanted a super aggressive tread, which these are super aggressive, especially the sidewall. And I wanted aggressive sidewall for crawling, because I've been doing crawling on this thing. I've been to San Hollow a couple times. I plan on going to Moab soon. And these have been great. I mean, I've accidentally ran through pallet fires and all kinds of stuff. Not while they're on fire, obviously. And I haven't got, oh man, I wish I had wood to knock on right now. I haven't got a single puncture in these things. I did blow I had a blowout once, but that's because I flew off of a trail, and I don't think anything would have survived that. But anyway, I've had these on there for quite a while, over a year. Super impressed with them. They're a softer compound, so they're going to wear out a little faster. But I've been super impressed with those Sedona ripsaws. Super tough, super puncture resistant, huge fan. Now, as far as the rim choice goes, little flashy, but I wanted these rims in particular, and let me show you a good example of why. I wanted beadlocks, specifically as almost like a protective ring, if nothing else, because I don't really believe I'm going to DB the tire. It's a possibility, especially when you're crawling around, but see that right there? Stuff like that, you'll find little things like that on all these rims. But the Sedonas have these like raised lug protectors on their rings, and it protects my beadlocks. So that's why I chose this rim in particular. Now, I didn't want this bike any wider than it already was. I went with a 0 offset. Those are 14-inch rims. And I went with 28-inch tires, and they are, let me find the width. I believe they're 10 width. A little taller, a little wider. Stock was 27. I forgot what the widths were. And the reason I went with wider, I wanted taller just to try and raise the ground clearance even more, because as the razors get bigger, the middle humps get bigger. I used to be a big time sport bike quad rider, you know, the sport quads, ATVs, solid axles, stuff like that. And I couldn't do it anymore. The trails are too beat up out here. And the main thing that prevents riding one of those ATVs is the middle hump. With a solid axle, you just are dragging it all the time. I couldn't keep a skid plate on them. I broke a bunch of chains. It was becoming a mess. My last quad was a DS650. And what I was trying to combat it was I got UTV tires that I put on it. And if I find it, I'll put a picture like here of it. And it was to try and raise the swing arm out of the middle hump. Give me a little more ground clearance. So this bike is the tallest one that I found to help with that issue. So it's got like 14 inches of ground clearance, I'm pretty sure. And that's why I got the taller tires to raise it up even a little bit, because even with 14 inches of ground clearance, the bigger these side-by-sides getting, the taller the middle hump's getting, even 14 inches isn't quite enough anymore. So 28s. I went wider to increase the footprint. So pounds per square inch in the sand. And that's because this bike is so heavy. I've buried it once in the San Hollow. I was in San Hollow and I buried it. I'll put a little picture. It is too heavy to lift out in the sand. I shouldn't say too heavy. It's just you put in so much more effort to try to lift that thing out of a hole you've dug that I don't want to do that again. So I got a wider footprint, more pounds per square inch. Also for crawling, it helps as well. And actually for braking. So this quad is so heavy. It's like close to 1,000 pounds, especially with all the extra weight I've put on it. And then when I'm on it myself, that adds quite a bit of extra weight right there. And so when you're going really fast, the handbrake lever activates all 4 brakes. Not a huge fan of that. I like a divorced brake where the lever works the front, the foot works the back, just because I'm used to it. And I feel like you can ride more dynamically when you have a divorced system like that. But even with locking up all 4 tires, this is so much weight, so much inertia, that it will continue to go. The tires will be stopped, but because there's so much weight behind how much momentum you've built up, it just doesn't stop on a dime. We'll put it to you that way. So I was hoping adding a bigger footprint would help traction to the ground and it would stop better. And like I said, it's not a caliper issue. It's not a brake strength issue because it'll stop the tires, but it won't stop the bike. And that did seem to help, adding this wider footprint. Now, obviously, some of the things that you want to be concerned about when you put bigger tires on something is ball joints and just all the joints, all the weight you're putting on the knuckles and stuff, all the extra leverage you're putting on there. I haven't had an issue yet. Like I said, I've had these on here over a year. I do very aggressive riding. I do some crawling, some dune stuff, really rocky desert. I haven't had an issue. These are the stock ball joints on here, which, you know what, let's talk a little bit about the Polaris has a pretty poor reputation for its build quality and longevity of its machines. I've heard it. I'm sure everyone's heard it. So as far as this one goes, I've had very, very good luck. Some of the only things I've done is I've taken off all the A-arms and all that. When I very first got it and I greased them, I know they use dry systems. I know they're supposed to be dry technically. You can't convince me dry's better than greased. So I greased them all. So take that for what you will. I've had no issues. Stock ball joints, stock everything. And I have 2,700 miles on this. They're 2,700 harsh miles. So not a lot of dirt roads where I'm going. So anywho, take that for what you will. Haven't broke anything. The only thing I have done is I've burned up 2 belts. Both of them were my fault. The first time was, like I told you, I was stuck in the dunes. My first CVT quad, I burned both those belts just from ignorance. First one, I got stuck, tried to get out. I didn't put it in low gear. That's important. I didn't realize how these belts can burn if they slip. So I burned a bald spot. I didn't even toast that belt entirely. It still got me out of there. Actually, I rode the whole weekend on that same belt. But I did burn a little bald spot in that belt. The second belt, this is a build quality issue with Polaris, is the CVT exhaust port. So it being right here in the wheel well, I didn't like that just being an open hole. That's how it comes from the factory. I thought that needed a filter. So I found a filter that would fit, a little cheapy filter. This was the second trip to Sand Hollow. I actually am not sure if I have a picture of that belt, but that belt eviscerated. It's the worst belt I've ever seen. And not quality-wise, just in the manner in which it deconstructed itself. So the reason why, once again, not a Polaris issue, this was an ignorance issue, is as that belt started wearing out, that filter was actually preventing hot air from escaping. And then as that belt wore out, because it was getting so hot in there, all those little bits started clogging that filter, making it hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter. So That's how I destroyed the second belt. And like I said, those are both my issues. But if we are going to continue on this thought process of Polaris and build quality, you know, there's some things we got to talk about here. So the way the plastics are held on is with these little plunger clips. Anyone who's ever owned a Polaris is definitely real familiar with those. They're junk. They've always been junk. They will always be junk. Just everything's loose. Everything shakes. It's not great. But like I said, put a lot of really harsh miles on here and nothing serious has broken. I'm on my original set of ball joints, original set of all that stuff. So, say what you will, and I'm definitely overloading this thing compared to what its weight capacity should be. I don't know if I already mentioned it, but I'm 290 pounds, and I'm putting a lot of weight on that rack. So, you know, those are some of the things to keep in mind. It's a really sturdily built ATV. It's just some of the fit and finish on, let's say, non-important stuff is pretty shoddy, to say the least. So, while we're back here, I should mention, as far as ownership, I took off the sway bar. So I wanted to take the sway bar off to get more flex when I'm in the rocks, and it works out great. I get a much more plush ride when I'm going through harsh whoops and offset chatter and all that kind of stuff. And I lose some of my cornering speed, obviously, because the bike's less stable. I get more body roll. I have to put more body English when I do the ride. I'm totally happy with it. I'll do it again. This bike isn't a cornering machine. I do it that way. It's just too heavy. Actually, that's something to mention is when you really got some momentum behind you, that weight, you can feel it. You have a considerable amount of understeer. I feel like matter of fact, I don't feel like I've gotten that response from people I've let ride this bike. If you're lighter, it's harder to throw this bike around. You have to drive it with everyone has to drive this bike with the throttle. You have to break those rear tires loose, get it sliding around. And if you're lighter, it's harder to manhandle this bike around. So that's something to keep note of if you're interested in one of these. Maybe like some of the things I'd like to have changed. Those pegs are garbage. I don't know who thought that was a good idea. They're made out of plastic. The little lugs are very small. They don't have a good bite. I would like a little angle at the end so I can really like put my foot on it, put some leverage on it. I'm just not happy with those pegs at all. And even those little slits, even though I'm not a mudder, and I know people who mud definitely hate these little tiny slits, even though I'm not a mudder, still it'd be nice if those are bigger to get some of the rocks out of there. Like every time I stop, I'm picking out big old boulders from out of there. And also, I guess I should mention, I love how the bike looks, but those boulders end up in there because these fenders don't protect you from much. Yeah, I'll get a little meteorite getting slug at me at Mach Jesus every once in a while, sometimes on the nose or the back of the neck, but it's cost of looking cool, huh? Here's some interesting little modifications I've made I am really liking this. So this is a little bag from Nice CNC here, and it fits perfectly right here. You won't find these being sold for this bike. I believe this one was being sold for a Raptor 700, and you'll notice it's only on one side specifically because it fits here. And as you can see, you can remove this bag. It's got Velcro and a little clip. I keep my cell phone, wallet, little sidearm in there. And it fits because there used to be a warning sticker right here. And like any, good ATV owner, that's one of the first things I removed. So anyway, because the warning sticker was here, they kind of molded the plastic to fit that warning sticker, and that made this bag fit perfect right there. So the little clip and the Velcro, I know people will probably worry about that. I've ridden with that quite a bit. I've had zero issues with it. So nice bag. Some of the other things is the handguards. So the stock handguards used to mount to the brake cylinder mounting bracket here. A little stem would come off and attach to the handguards. I didn't like them because I stand up on this bike. That's why my handlebars are angled the way they are, kind of funky. My brakes angled down. I have everything set up to be more comfortable when I'm standing. And when I ride 90% of the time, I'm standing. So I wanted handguards that were divorced from the mounting position of my brake. So I can have a forward-facing handguard while my brake lever is facing down, to protect my hands from palo verde bushes and rocks and what have you. And so I got these Cerebis, however you pronounce that, man. Those are some neat handguards. You know, they just go into the end here. There's just enough room to add the mounting position here. And they've been great. I also added some ODI locking grips just so I don't have to deal with all the glue and nastiness, stickiness of something else. Real quick. Sure, when I was showing you about the exhaust earlier, you happened to mention that all my switches, put seven pin switches on here, just so they were easier to access at night. When I do some night rides, I can easily see what my switches are. So the little tiny dark switches, they weren't lighted up at all originally. When you're riding at night, you can't see them. You're kind of fumbling around if you don't want to stop and click one or whatever. So I got my performance switch, and what they do is when you turn them on, I can also see real quick and easy which ones are on. So like the performance switch especially, like that way it lights up when it's on. So I don't need to see that little performance pop up. I can see that it lights up. I know I'm in performance mode and I can turn it on or off like I wish. This one's a little more obvious, obviously. But they're all key on power. This one's for the whip back there. So they're all key on power except for this one. What this one is it's actually a fan bypass. So I ride this to the beach in the summertime in Arizona. What that means is I'm riding this bike in what could be 115, 120 degree weather. So I believe in keep it cool, start cool, keep it cool. So what this does is forces the fan on even when the key's off. So I can just have that fan going at all times. I don't have to worry about it turning off and it heating up too quick and not catching up. So that's what that is. And let's talk about the lights for a second here. This was the stock Polaris light that came with the bike. Usually mounts to these mounts right there. I thought that light was weak. It's strong enough for a handlebar light, which I really like to have, so that way when you're riding and you turn, you could see down into the trail before you actually get into the trail. I've always liked handlebar mounted lights, so that's what I decided to reuse that one for, but I wanted something stronger for my main forward-facing LED light bar. I just got this is just a cheapy night light from Amazon. They work great. I mean, you're only going to go as fast as you can see at night, and that's plenty. I mean, maybe if you're a real bad SOB, you might want something a little stronger, one of them Rigids or one of them other multiple $100 lights, but that's all I need. So, get down to these headlights here. You won't find these for this bike. You won't find them for a Polaris Scrambler XP1000S, but just by looking at it, you could tell the shape is, they've used these on Sportsmans, they use these on Razor 900s. I believe these ones were listed for a Razor 900 on eBay. Now, the stock lights used to have like a little chingus coming out the side that would clip, there's a clip on the plastic, and it had a little post that would push into that clip. And so the light could be rotated. Then there was a little retainer in there, a little screw. I always had trouble with them. They would always wiggle and adjust themselves. They'd come undone from the little clip. They were a big pain. So The decision to replace them came real easy when they got popped completely out and then got beat to death in here. So these work out great. They came with the harness that connects to the stock harness, so real easy to do. Like I said, those were off of a Razor 900. Let's see, while we're up here, this is a metal radiator guard, and I didn't like the chintzy little plastic one that comes stock because the voltage regulator is right there in blocking airflow, mind you. Talk about Polaris build quality. I don't know why it's there. It seems like a really bad place to have it. This is made by BVC Off-Road, and it's made out of metal. The holes are much smaller, so less rocks can get in there and do damage. I really like that. I think it's a lifesaver. I definitely recommend it. This bracket, pretty cool, came from OMF, I want to say. Machine specific, actually, for this bike. You know, they fit perfect into these little cutouts here, just like the BVC. And the only thing you'll have to do is, if you're going to stack both of them, you have to get your own hardware. Hardware won't be long enough if you don't. And as you can see, it becomes a problem. If you already own this bike, you already kind of spotted this issue. These hoods actually had a plastic shank. I know, it's like a deja vu from the rear box. And the plastic, so you'd unplug it from the top up there with little Polaris plug deals, and then you would slide it forward. Well, you don't want to have to take off your front light bar every single time you want to take this hood off. Well, luckily for me, even before this was even a thought, I broke these way early into the game. Those little Polaris plastic little knives that you like to use they're junk, man. So it is what it is, but I just bought these little latches off of Amazon. They're little spring-loaded latches. They work great. I did get the ones, made sure I got the ones with the pin, locking pin. I was running locking pins for forever. It is a jiggle. I could hear it. I didn't like it. I accidentally ran without it a couple times. They never come unlatched, never was an issue. So I run without them now. So maybe someday that spring wears out and over time, and I have to actually have the pin in there. But until then, it's working just fine the way it is. And man, hold on, let me, before I start yanking on things, I guess I'll lock it down. But so with those on there, man, it is sturdy. It is on there. That is going nowheres. So that was good. Let's see. You know what? We'll get down to the skid plates. Now, pound for pound, this is the best money I've ever spent on this bike so far. Is these really, really well done skid plates from Iron Baltic. I mean, the attention to detail on these plates is insane. So they have little extra bits right here. They come with caliper guards. They really do a good job at protecting your A-arms. And look, like the hardware, they give you these rings to protect your hardware. The hardware's recessed. These plates have been an absolute lifesaver. They look beat to death, but let me tell you, they are thick, they are sturdy. Without these plates, this bike would not have lasted 4 years. If you buy one of these bikes and you're riding some pretty aggressive territory, I could not recommend these enough. They are from Iron Baltic, and they are worth every penny. So, you might be wondering what these little weird deals are. I like to go out shooting sometimes. So Colpin makes these 3-fingered ratcheting holders. Now, even if you don't like go shooting or whatever, you can use them for a bunch of stuff. Like, I've used them for shovels and axe when I was out in the forest. So you just put them on there. They can rotate in any which way. This pin locks them in, and then they ratchet shut. And they do a great job at what they do. If that's something that you're interested in, I highly recommend it. And oh, I didn't mention the bracket for the light. I got that off of eBay too. I can't remember where or what it was called really. But if you do get one, just know you have to do some custom clearancing back here. You have to grind that off to fit. It mounts right where your handlebars, your handlebar clasps go to. So that's just something to know. You'll have to clearance that. There's a little bit to be desired if you're looking to do any kind of drag racing your buddies or doing wheelies or anything like that. You're going to want a clutch kit. There's a little to be desired with the actual like locking in and delivering the power off that real bottom end. I plan on doing that modification soon, just because that would be nice to have a little bit more oomph off the rip, but overall, I'm not struggling for power at all. The only thing I will say I'm struggling on is my range. So it's got a little over 5 gallons of fuel in this thing. That might get you 100 miles, and I'm talking like you're spitting and sputtering at the end of this 100 miles. And that's if you don't get in it. If you're on dirt roads where you're getting up there 50 to 70 miles an hour, that is going to consume a lot more fuel. You definitely feel it in the fuel mileage. It's something that I really wish someone would do something about. It's like along with the pegs, like there's no good solution for that right now. There's no good solution for the fuel capacity right now. So I understand my pipe and ejector setup's probably not helping the situation, but it would be nice. It seems like, because the tank is right here, and it seems like there's some negative space there that you could maybe, if someone was so inclined, they could utilize some of that negative space in there and create a bigger tank to extend the range on this a little bit. I've been working on coming up with fuel storage solutions myself that involve the rear rack and some pack out equipment. If that works, I'll get a video about that later. But right now, I would say safely, no matter how you ride, you can go 80 miles on this bike. Me and myself have been trying to do longer form stuff, trying to get out there and do a lot of miles. And it seems like it's a constant little issue is, where are we stopping for fuel? What am I going to do about fuel? My range just isn't what I would expect on something that can hold 5 gallons of fuel. So, something to keep in mind. What I'll say about the four-wheel drive is four-wheel drive works awesome. As long as you know how to use it, you know when to be in high and when to be in low. Works great. I've been rock crawling on this thing. I've done some of the more popular trails in Sand Hollow. Does it like a champ. It does feel, because the bike is tall, you can't really tell through the cameras how tall this bike is. That seat's just about as tall as a dirt bike when it's standing next to it. So the center of gravity, especially since I'm a taller guy, I'm about 6'3", the center of gravity definitely, when you're crawling around, when you're going like, as you're climbing some of those steeper rocks, it feels pretty eerie. So that's something to keep in mind. But matter of fact, I'll post like a little video or something of me rock crawling. And I don't have videos of anything really cool, but I have something, so I'll post that up there. So, yeah, I believe that's a pretty solid review on this thing. So if you have any questions,